So what's going on, sir? How you been?
Oh, not bad. I think we're kind of up here. We're kind of between snowstorms at the moment. We got a little dusting last night, and I don't know, it's in the forecast for about 4 days. So unfortunately, old Black Betty's living the old battery tender life right now.
Oh, that's not the good life to live. Not at all.
No.
So Denver, would you tell everybody where you're from and a little bit about yourself, if you wouldn't mind?
Well, I'm from Port Angeles, Washington. I'm up in the far northwest corner of the United States, a little place we call the PNW, in other words, Pacific Northwest. This guy enjoys motorcycles. As you can see, I did start the VTwin Life as my own little podcast, and actually had you on there a while back. And we built an awesome friendship, and just, two guys enjoy motorcycles, and that's my passion. I've ridden bikes since, God, I think I was 5 or 6 when I first started. I've been on the road riding for, God, I bought my street bike. I was 20. So Jesus, next year will be 23 years. I'll be 43 next month. I mean,
holy smokes.
So I've got some miles on the road. It's something I really enjoy. And, in the last, 4 or 5 months, it's just, diving into kind of what you're doing, diving into this podcast world. I've made, built so many more new friendships, and it's freaking amazing. And, I hope that I can get some good time this summer to go a few places and meet a lot of these people that I've been meeting face to face. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when, so you started riding pretty young.
Yeah, I started with dirt bikes when I was 5 or 6. I got into motocross racing until I had a gnarly accident when I was, 13, 14. Then I jumped into hill climbing because in my mind, it was a lot safer. It's me against the clock. Well, you're racing motocross. You got 5 to 10 guys are in front of you, beside you, behind you. I got into hill climbing. It's me against the clock. If it's going to go bad, 9 times out of 10, I know it's going to go bad. I just let off the throttle. Sometimes you get them little fluke accidents, but I enjoyed it. It was so much fun. And the community and family in the hill climbing, I mean, I traveled around the Northwest. I went to Seattle, Idaho. I went up through Canada. I got to go all over riding. And it was a great family. And then, as you get a little older, my wife and I, we had kids young. And so the fun stuff goes because then it's time to be a parent. And it's been awesome. So then I went to the road.
Yeah. Now, what did you start out with on the road? Now, your dad rides, right, too. So was your dad your inspiration
my
to get into riding?
Both. Well, my stepdad got me into riding because he's an old biker from way back, and he got me into motorcycles. But him and my dad both rode on the road. My stepdad also raced dirt bikes and rode on the road. And so really, I think motorcycles, I think my stepdad really got me into it. My dad was right there helping with it a lot too. But then when it came to riding on the road, I think me and my dad do a ton of it together. We really took off. My very first motorcycle trip, shortly after I got my first bike, was me and my dad did a 4-day loop around Washington State.
Wow.
And my first bike I bought was the 83 Honda Sabre.
Nice.
The old V45. It wasn't the prettiest. It was like a maroonish color, but I commuted on that because my old job I had back then, it was 65 miles one way to work. And I would commute on that bike probably 9 months out of the year.
Nice.
So I'd do 120-ish miles round trip back and forth and did a bunch of little bike trips with my dad. And it was a blast.
Really nice. That's awesome. So where did you go from there? So you started with the Honda.
From that one, I had that one for a few years. And then I picked up, it was an 83 or 84, the GS 750 ES Suzuki, which was kind of the beginning world of the GSXR for Suzuki. And that thing was, it was quick. I had a, 4-into-1 header on it, had a Super Trap exhaust on it. And where I worked out west, it's a really twisty highway called 112 up on the peninsula. And usually to work, it's, it should take you an hour. And I was getting to the point where I was doing it in sub 40-minute range. And it's like, what? This just isn't the smartest of things to do. And when you got a family and kids, it's like, nah, this bike's got to go because I'm destined to get in trouble or hurt myself. And I didn't really need that. So I had it for maybe a year.
Okay.
And I got rid of it. Went to Suzuki Boulevard, the old C50. I bought a 2006. Rode that for quite a while. And then I sold that because my daughter needed some orthodontics, and because her jaw length was one tooth back too far, and I fought my insurance company and they wouldn't pay for it because they said it was cosmetic, but it wasn't cosmetic. And they said if I want to wait a year till she turned 13, they would pay for it because the human body, when you hit 13, your jaw is fully developed. And so they said, we'll pay for it then, and we'll break her jaw and move it. I'm like, there's no way. And so finally I said, you know what? Piss on it. I'll sell my bike and I'll pay for it. So I sold the Boulevard and got her the braces she needed. And at that time, it's like, hey, you know what? I'll just buy a bike next year. Well, then both my boys got into travel baseball, and every year it's like, I'll buy a bike next year. I'm going to buy a bike next year. And well, that went on for like 10 years until about 18 months ago when I acquired my Road Glide for Father's Day for my dad.
Yeah, let's talk about that bike, man. That bike's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. It's amazing. You know, the whole thing my dad did was absolutely amazing. I mean, he had quite the speech written out. It was quite an emotional deal for both of us, you know. And my stepmom had called and wanted me to come up there. Said, Dad needs to see you. I'm like, well, you know, we were out of town at a baseball tournament for my middle son, Seth. And I'm like, I can't. She's, well, you know, Dad needs to talk to you now. It's like, I would try to call his phone. She would answer it. And she's like, you just need to come up here. And finally, I mean, we went back and forth, and she was pushing my buttons really well. And said, fine, you know what? I'll see you tomorrow. And the next day, he's like, hey, all the kids need to come up with you. And, you know, the family, everybody's got to come up. I'm like, well, my daughter moved. She's not here anymore. So, you know, me and my wife, Amy, and both the boys will come up. And we're going up there, and the motorcycle's out front of his garage in the driveway. And he goes up, he goes, you know, seeing everything that, you know, you guys devoted your life to the kids. He goes, all the sports, you know, my daughter through all her horses and all the shows we'd go to, and just, you know, we put our kids first. I mean, my daughter went to WSU, Washington State University, on an academic scholarship. My middle son went to college on a baseball scholarship. I mean, we devoted our lives to our kids. Everything else, you know, we had kids young, so figure, you know what, as a parent, you devote everything to your kids. So we figure, you know what, later in life, you know, I mean, put it this way, I'm 42 and my youngest just turned 18. So it's like, I got, you know, the golden years are ahead of me, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And, you know, when my dad said, he goes, all this stuff you guys have done, he goes, you know, we're just so proud of everything you've done, and how you've raised the kids. And my dad's always been a big part of my kid's life and my life. I mean, he's, you know, my best friend. He was always there for horse shows, baseball games, soccer games, volleyball. I mean, you name it. And he goes, it's so awesome. He goes, you know, I miss the days when we used to go riding on trips. He goes, but I totally understand why we haven't. He goes, and so many things have worked out great for me. And I'm kind of giving you a short version. He had like a 10-minute speech. I mean, he was in tears by the time he was done. But he goes, the best way to put it, he goes, last week I bought a brand new 2019 Road Glide. He goes, so the best thing I could think to do is give you the title to your bike. He goes, so there's your Road Glide. Why don't you go ahead and take it home?
Wow.
And I was like, that's kind of what I said. And then he goes, well, there's one catch. I'm like, sure, Dad, what's the catch? He's like, I need it for one more week because I won't have my bike, and I already got a bike trip planned. So he gives me the
my bike, Dad.
Yeah. I told him there's a rental fee because he puts on a charity ride every year. It's a 1,000-mile ride, and they were going up through Canada. He's like, so when I get back, he goes, you know, you come get the bike. And I think that was the longest week of my life.
I'm sure.
Of course, when I go pick it up, he's like, hey, the brakes need noise. I think you need new brakes. Thanks, Dad.
Dads.
But yeah, you know, he gave me the Road Glide. I've had it for like 18 months. And man, last summer, I mean, granted, we had the COVID. A lot of people couldn't do stuff. And for us, my boys, we couldn't play baseball here in Washington. So we went to Idaho 4 times, I think. And so even my wife goes, you know what? Why don't you just ride the bike? I'm like, hey, that is a great idea. I'll ride the bike you guys drive. And, you know, I did my 1K last summer on one of the trips to Idaho and rode down there a couple other times. And I rode down to Oregon a couple times. And I went all over. It was, you know, the old PMA, that throttle therapy, just mentally keeping yourself in check. And it was awesome.
That is awesome. I mean, that's got to be a great thing for your dad. And that's a sweet bike you have too. I mean, that's a monster bike for laying down miles. That is
It
awesome.
is. You know, we had a great trip down to Oregon last year. You know, me and him and one of his good friend Todd's and Dustin Clark, who was on my podcast earlier, a good friend of mine. Actually, he says it was my fault that he had to go buy a Harley because he got tired of all my Snapchats of me riding all the time. So he went and bought an Ultra Limited, and he loves it. Him and his wife, and you know, it takes a daughter. She always wants to go ride, and you know, helped introduce some other people to it. But it's a lot of fun. And now, you know, me and Dad are back to doing our little rides, and we did a few day rides last summer. We did our overnight weekend trip down to Pendleton, and we got some cool plans for this summer, and it's just miles ahead.
That's awesome. Now, do you think you're going to get the kids in the riding down the road?
My kids, I mean, they've rode dirt bikes. I mean, I started them when they were little through, you know, the little KTM 50, the Yamaha 80, and they've grown. My older son, he's 20 now. He's got a YZF 250, but he does plan on picking up a road bike. I think he says in the next year he'd like to. Whether that happens, we'll find out, but I hope so. My younger son, he wants to really bad, and I think the day when both of them get it and, you know, me and them and my dad go for a ride will just be the absolute happiest day of my life almost.
Yeah.
It'll be awesome. It'll be an awesome feeling.
I mean, I think it's great that when you can continue that tradition down. I don't know that I'll see that with my boys, but I'd love to one day ride. I mean, they ride with me, but they don't necessarily ride on their own, but that's just a great family thing. Now, your wife rides too, I assume?
She rides with me. She doesn't have her own bike. She doesn't have really a desire to have her own, and she enjoys going on rides with me. So, I mean, there was numerous trips. God, we rode up to Bellingham. It was the summer I first got the bike. So it had been, say, 17 months ago. My son was playing the state baseball tournament, which was 5 days long in Bellingham. And most of the kids that we have that would house sit for us, they were all playing baseball with them. So we ended up just going back and forth from Bellingham every day. So it was like 200 miles every day. But in Washington, you can hop the ferry, and it's like $5 for a motorcycle. Plus, you don't have to wait for ferry waits on a motorcycle. You go to the front of the line, no matter if it's 2, 3, 4 ferry wait, motorcycles get priority. So we just hopped on the bike. The weather was great, and we went back and forth from Bellingham for 5 days watching baseball.
That's
cheap
fantastic.
Economy, cheap ferry rates, and just great weather and a good time.
That's fantastic. So what's the not being a local there? Where's the places that you like to ride? I mean, we've talked about this before, but what's your go-to place? Like, I mean, if someone visits the state, where's things they need to check out?
Well, if you're visiting like over on the peninsula, there is the Olympic Peninsula Loop that will take you all the way around the peninsula. You can ride Highway 112 along the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Then you can cut down. There's a short highway called 113 that will take you to 101. And you can hop 101 all the way down the coast to Aberdeen, Washington, and then head towards Olympia. And you can come back up Hood Canal, which is kind of like the bottom piece of Puget Sound. That's a great loop. It's about 300 miles. But I think one of the best hidden gems in Washington is the North Cascades Highway, which is up northern Washington, a little south of the Canadian border. I think that highway's open probably 7-8 months a year because they don't maintain it in the winter. But the scenery up there is just breathtaking. It's just beautiful. You got Lake Diablo and Lake Ross, which is like just a bright emerald green because they're right off the glaciers, and it's absolutely stunning, beautiful ride. But
very nice.
I mean, and there's different Cascade loops because we have 4 different passes to get over the Cascades from Western Washington to Eastern Washington. So depending on how far you want to ride, there's a short loop. You could go over what's called North Cascades Highway. You can come back Stevens. You can go back a little farther and come back Snoqualmie Pass, which is on I-90, or even go farther south and come back White's Pass. Or then again, keep going south and come back along the Columbia River, just depending how many miles you want to ride, how far you want to go. But the mountain passes in the summertime are just beautiful. Yeah. But I think the topper is North Cascades. I think that's actually one of the rides for Harley this year, or was last year for the 50 rides.
Really? Oh, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, actually, God, I want to say it's this year because I was talking with Michael Nielsen about it.
Nice. Well, that brings into two. So tell us about the VTwin podcast. I mean, you've made some amazing headway with that.
Well, for me, it was just a way to talk to other riders and not so much talk to them, but hear travel stories. That's the big thing I really enjoy. That's why, like I always have said, I really enjoy reading Rider Magazine. I really like Roadrunner because they more or less showcase riding trips, different little destinations, little loops in the country. And that's the stuff I really enjoy. We all make out those bucket list ideas. I want to get to Tennessee, ride the Dragon. I would like to go through the Ozarks, get up through the Catskills. And, some of those, I found a lot of places through those magazines, and I figured, hey, you know what? Why not try to reach out to other people from all over and hear some of their stories and talk motorcycles? It was a fun idea. Then it's like, then you stumble upon them trying to figure out what to call it. And I settled upon the VTwin Lyfe. The VTwin it's not just Harley. It's not just Indian Victory. I mean, everybody makes a VTwin, almost every manufacturer. Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, Ducati, sport bikes, cruisers, everywhere. The VTwins are a huge piece of the motorcycle industry and community. So I figured, hey, this would be a great name. Did my homework. It wasn't anywhere in the world, so I took it.
Nice.
And it was an awesome way, like I said, to meet other guys. I've had some amazing guests that have came on the show. And I think the most awesome part is every one of those guests I've built a friendship with.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys I call, I text. You're a prime example of that. We talk frequently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jason Setzer Pendants out of Texas. Probably at least once a month, I'll get on the phone with Rusty Bagger. Then I hooked up with Crash Inc. Me and Brad are talk a lot, and meeting him, 801 Rhino was a great one that I really enjoyed because of his pictures and his photography work and the places he has to ride down in Utah are just stunning.
Mm-hmm.
And getting to talk to these other people and hear their stories and be able to share those stories forever in a digital format is awesome. And, maybe help introduce other people into the motorcycle community. The views have just really, it's crazy to watch your analytics. Sometimes you feel like a real geek nerd, but you can't help but look daily. It's
hourly.
On certain days, yeah, 10-4, I got you. But no, it's been awesome. I really enjoy it. And, for something that you have no expectations on, it's like, is this even going to work? It's been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think that's the cool part about the creator community is most people, and I wouldn't say it's all because there is those bad seeds, but I think that so many people are willing to sit down and help you and learn and share. And I think that's what makes it great. It's much like the motorcycle community. It's just an extension of that, it's sharing, what works, what doesn't work. And it's exciting. I think it's great when you can be creative for sure.
And what's cool is even seeing past guests I've had and seeing different guests that are really interacting and kind of not know so much as really being supportive and wanting to help out. Like Michael Nielsen, that's a great example. He's getting ready for his big trip with Mission 22. Michael Nielsen has Two Wheels to Survive. He's a former veteran, fighting his demons, but his motorcycle is his therapy. Mm-hmm. And this is, I believe, his second year with Mission 22. They're doing around a 7,500 mile trip, hitting 22 national parks. Well, then I had Robin the Lady Biker on a few episodes back. She really likes to support that kind of stuff. And I've watched that her and Michael are really now communicating back and forth. And she's really hoping, once his planning and schedule comes out, her and her husband will want to hook up with him when they're in California and do a little bit of riding with him when they hit the national parks down there. And I'm hoping when Michael comes back up the coast, him and the group, they're going to come through here in Port Angeles because when they hit Olympic National Park, and I'm hoping to hook up with them and even ride, or I'd be honored to have them all over for a barbecue and hear some stories and whatnot. And that'll be great.
Yeah. It's amazing that community is just, everybody's so open and willing. I think it's great. And like you said, it's really interesting too, when you meet people to find out what makes them tick and to find out about, their local area and the things that they enjoy.
Yeah.
You've had some really big folks on there, which has been great.
And it's been so fun. And it's like, I don't search out the biggest names. I mean, granted, we all have, some dream guests you'd like to have, but it's like, go through social media and just find somebody that shares that interest. It's just motorcycles, like Papa Robledo. He recently started the Harley Showcase on Instagram. He does like a live podcast on Sundays, brings in other people that enjoy motorcycles, and does like a live format, talks about the bike, the build, what they've done. And, had him on. We've had some great conversations. He's kind of taken podcasting to a little bit of different view or different way with how he's doing it live on Instagram, which I think is freaking cool. Yeah. I thought about doing that once or twice a month, bring a guy on and kind of do a little live Q&A with people.
Yeah, the live,
really cool.
I think the live thing is really cool. It's pretty stressful, but a lot of people are doing that on YouTube for sure. I think it brings. Now you're planning on kicking out some YouTube stuff too, right?
Yeah, I want to do some rides, kind of showcase where we live, or where I live in the area. I want to try to keep up, do weekly updates on YouTube for podcasts. Let people know what's coming up, the guests I got coming on. I guess I'll let the cat out of the bag. I'm working on putting a 300-mile charity poker run on this summer.
Nice.
And after having Riot on my podcast the other day, who, I mean, for a guy that rides like he does, I have friends that look at me and say, dude, I can't believe how much you ride. It's absolutely amazing. And then I talked to Riot. I'm like, man, dude, I got nothing. I'm nothing. When this guy's doing 10,000 miles in 10 days, 8,500 miles, all 48 states in 7 hours, 23 minutes. Or 22 hours, I think it was, just shy of 8 days. But he's doing it for a great cause, trying to help cure Duchenne's disease, which affects mainly young males when they're very young. And right now that disease is fatal. He has met a great little boy named Jamesy, and they became great friends. And Riot's goal is to cure Duchenne's disease and be able to see Jamesy ride a bike. And
that's awesome.
After the, numerous conversations with him, having him on the show, he's been very inspirational. And so I want to do this charity poker run this summer, and he has started his own 501c3, Mile Monsters Inc., which he rides money in turn for Jar of Hope, which is fighting for a cure for Duchenne's disease. So I want him to be the recipient of my ride this summer.
That's awesome.
And so I picked my route. I'm going to do the Olympic Peninsula Loop. I figured out, my 5 checkpoints when we first start here in Port Angeles. The guys would draw their first card. When you hit Forks, Washington, which for anybody that tunes in, if you're a big Twilight fan, Forks got huge from Twilight. That's where the movie is based out of. But you draw your second card in Forks. You get to the bottom of the peninsula. There's a big rest stop down by a little town called Elma. There's your third card. When you're coming up Hood Canal, there's a cool little restaurant called the Gooey Duck. Stop at the Gooey Duck, you get they have amazing seafood. I mean, the Hood Canal is known for its oysters and gooey ducks and clams.
Nice.
So you get your fourth.
So what is a gooey duck?
Port Angeles. Gooey duck is kind of like a clam, but they're huge.
Okay. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you caught my attention. Okay.
Yeah, gooey ducks are very large and they have a huge neck that comes out of them. It looks kind of like a male organ, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But yeah, people love them. I'm not a big fan of seafood, even though I live here. I don't like shellfish. I can eat crab, salmon. I smoke a lot of salmon and fish, but I'm not a shellfish fan. Clams and oysters, I'll pass. I'll give everybody my share. I don't want them. But yeah, then when you come back into Port Angeles, you draw your fifth card. There's going to be a silent auction going. I got to work on sponsors, see who wants to help donate stuff. I do have a hobby of building furniture, so I'm going to build a few furniture pieces that will also go in it and just see what I can raise. I mean, I set my goal. I'd love to raise $1,000. I don't think it'd be too hard, but I don't want to set the goal that's just not even realistic. So I figure, hey, $1,000 for my first time trying. If I can get to 1,000, dude, I'm stoked, and that's awesome. And I've talked to Riot about it, and he's willing to send out some help and merchandise from his foundation, and he'll have some support coming over from the other side of Puget Sound, the Seattle area, and it's going to be really cool. I'm excited.
Very sweet. So what got you into furniture building? That's unique. And in your stuff is amazing that I've seen.
I don't know. I just enjoy woodworking, and I figured actually it all started years ago with the craze of repurposing pallets.
Okay.
That's kind of how it all started. I got into building furniture mainly out of pallets, and it really took off, word of mouth. A lot of my friends, they call, hey, can you make me this? Well, sure, I can do that. And, then I started buying more tools and more tooling and more stuff to make the wood even look great, better. And you can take a nasty pallet, strip it apart, of course, pull your nails. You run that wood through a planer and you'll be amazed what it will look like when it comes out of the planer. You strip a little bit off and it's amazing. And so it grew from there. And then I went on to bigger pieces, coffee tables, end tables, all the way up to, I've done a couple big 6 foot by 8 to 9 foot farm tables.
Wow.
Those are really cool, but they're really hard to do, especially when most of the stuff, because, my wife's always busy, and you get that big, it takes more than one person, especially when you get to the finishing side, because you can't move it around, and you really got to have some help for those. But coffee tables and end tables are kind of my bread and butter. I really enjoy doing them. It's the perfect size for one person to move around and work with. So it's easy for me. And it just grew. And it's like anything, you build one piece and you learn something from that piece. You figure out a new tool, and every piece you build, you kind of progress and your skills get a little better, and you just keep going. And for me, it's something I can do. I'd come out here in my shop, fire up the wood stove, turn on my music, and just build something.
That's awesome.
I have friends send me a picture. Hey, can you make this? What size do you want it? And do it. And since my boys have done a lot of sports and whatnot, they have different fundraisers to help with the sports program for the high school baseball team. They're a travel team. So, my wife and I, we built a lot of pieces that we've donated to a lot of different causes to help raise money, just because we'd like to give back to our community. I've done a lot for just to donate. But awesome. It's still a lot of fun. It's just people really like it. And sometimes it's not about the money. It's just about, can you help out?
That's really cool. I mean, that's not something you see much anymore. Like, furniture's not what it used to be. Everything's come down to sort of being disposable furniture. The heirloom furniture doesn't seem to be, it doesn't exist anymore, it seems like.
No, it's like, the stuff I build, it is heavy duty. It is going to last. It's like every piece I've told anybody, hey, if you got a problem with something, let me know. I'll fix it.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm just going to get it to get rid of it. It's kind of I take pride in what I do, the craftsmanship. And if there's something not right or something ends up going wrong down the road, which, knock on wood, I've never had anything go wrong, but I'll fix whatever goes wrong. And so many people, it's like they get one piece and that just leaves, well, hey, can you do this? And it's like each little piece gets a little bigger. And I've done a lot of small stuff to bigger stuff. I had if you go on Instagram, at PNW_pallet guy was my woodworking page, which I haven't updated in a while, 18 months or so, probably. Just because I had so much other stuff going on, but you can see a lot of the stuff I built is on there, and I'm going to get that page going again now that I can.
Nice.
And it's a fun hobby. It's something to do. Of course, it seems now that I'm, getting a new career going, got the podcast going, trying to do woodworking stuff. I don't really have the free time. I want to go ride. It's like, man, I'm really getting myself locked into a lot of things.
Yeah, isn't it kind of weird? You do a podcast on riding, you do YouTube on riding, and then you don't ride. I feel like I get sucked into that. I feel like the more stuff you do, which is great, right? You become more creative, but you're almost taken away from it.
It's like this time of year with the weather, even I know you guys got nailed with some snow, last week, and we're forecast for snow almost every day this week. I don't know if there'll be large accumulations. I've seen some forecasts are saying 6 to 8 inches, but I think predicting the weather is like flipping a coin, dude. Heads or tails, what are you going to get?
Yep.
Granted, we know it's going to be cold as hell, and so we'll go with it's going to be cold as hell, and you might get some white precipitation, but who knows? but it does hinder the riding. And so then I guess I could do other stuff. Kind of, if I can't do that, well, I guess I can come play with some woodworking stuff or do whatever. Of course, right now I got Zoom school in the morning doing my new career stuff, and evenings do whatever.
Isn't it amazing? You can do anything on Zoom now. Everything was used to be in person, and a year ago now it's just, this is all it is. It's just video conference. Doesn't matter what it is.
I'm not a fan of it, especially for some sort of school and education. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. That's how I learn, and trying to do it over Zoom, dude, it's very frustrating. I'm not very computer smart. I can work my way around a smartphone, freaking awesome. But you put me in front of a computer, dude, I'm dumb.
Yeah.
Me and computers don't get along.
It's a shame too, because it takes away from that interaction. Like I find like meetings even are so unproductive because it's some of these kids are in the background screaming and, you know, the dog's barking. It's just, I miss the good old days.
Or somebody doesn't forget to mute their mic and you hear all kinds of stuff and they don't realize it's on. It's like, hot mic, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you start woodworking? My dad and my grandfather were really into that stuff. My dad still does it. It's just something you kind of picked up, or?
I think it came more along the line as my wife had seen some pallet furniture she wanted. I was like, okay, sure. And I didn't ever say anything. So she was working one day and I went and got some stuff and I built, the first one was like 2 benches and like this coffee table that went on our deck. I posted a picture of it on, Jesus, it might've been my Facebook back then, hard to say, and had some friends comment, hey, where'd you get that? Well, I built it. Can you make it for me? And it snowballed from that. And then it went from making, coffee tables, end tables, bathroom wall hanging pieces, floating shelves. I'm not sure what I haven't made really for a house. And it's just, I'm gifted at it. It's something I can do. I can build stuff. I'm, mechanically inclined, I think it's fair to say. And I enjoy it. When you can take a bunch of pieces and lay it on the ground and say, okay, you're going to be an end table tomorrow. And before you know it, hey, you got a table. And then the longest part is the finishing, because I put a lot of polyacrylic on it. I started with polyurethane years ago, but I would do say coffee table. I put a coat of polyurethane on it. Well, I can't touch that for a day because it's got a cure.
Yeah.
Where the polyacrylic, I can put a coat of polyacrylic on it and I could touch it in less than an hour and work with it more. And so the cure time when it came to polyacrylic versus urethane, I could finish pieces a lot faster. Took your finishing time from a week to like 2 days. Exactly. For a minimum of, if I build a coffee table, end table, the bare bones minimum I'm going to put on it is at least 5 coats.
Okay.
Clear. That way the wood's good and protected. Something gets spilled on it, hey, you can wipe it off. You won't stain the wood. That's just how I like to do it. Some other places they might not do that much or whatever, but every piece I get due is 5 to 8 coats of clear. And that's just my standard. It's just how I like to do it.
That's really nice. That table that you built for Crash is amazing.
Oh, that came out awesome. And of course, as soon as you saw some of the other stuff, now it's matching end tables, and I'm going to put USB power slots on the top of the table for them. And
nice.
That'll be pretty cool. He's got to send me the measurements, so they'll go on each side of his couch, and they'll match the coffee tables in his living room.
That is awesome. And he's been he's been a great sponsor for your podcast. He's done some great work.
He's been amazing. Yeah, the friendship and everything through him with the podcast has just been awesome. He came on in the beginning, and the sponsorship was awesome. It wasn't a monetary, money deal. He goes, hey, I want to sponsor it. So we traded, he got me some merchandise, some shirts, hats, I got his gloves now, a raincoat. I got Crash everything. My kids are now, I bought stuff for my kids too. Cause
that raincoat's awesome.
All those raincoats are sweet. But yeah, it's been great. And, the podcast has grown and our friendship has grown. And that's, now like Long Ride windshields. They've been sharing a lot. They gave me my own promo code for the podcast. Anybody ordering from Long Ride Shields, the VTwin Lyfe will save you 15% off anything Long Ride sells.
Nice.
We've actually picked up another sponsor, but we're keeping that one a little hush-hush until we can test out some stuff and then everybody can learn about them here in the months or two to come.
And I think I think it's great too, because it's a generic thing, right? It's you found it, you like it, it's become a part of your life. I think that's cool. I think that's really cool.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the new company coming on board. A guy called the CEO of the company. He's like, hey, how does all this other stuff happen? And we started talking. He's like, dude, he goes, we want in. And it was an awesome deal. I mean, I built a great friendship with this guy. But it's like, he goes, hey, I want you to try some of the stuff out. He goes, you get time with this product. He goes, and then you can tell people about him. He goes, I don't want you mentioning us until you see what it is, and you get to try it for yourself. And I think that's awesome. They've sent me some stuff out to try. And so once weather gets better and, get the bike out more, I'll be testing out their stuff, and then we'll let everybody else learn about the
that's
the
awesome.
sponsor in time to come. And,
that's awesome.
They came to me, and which was totally awesome. And, when you start something having no idea how it's going to go, and to the feedback, the friendships, the comments and everybody, I mean, it's just been amazing. It's the old saying, man, it's been an awesome ride, and it's still going. I got no intentions of stopping.
That's great. Well, how many episodes are you up till now? You've got quite a few under your belt.
Now we don't really call them episodes.
Okay.
After the 25th, we moved on. It was more or less by accident. When I did the 20th episode, I wanted something kind of cool. So I had FDLX Brooklyn, Connor FXDB, and Von Gasfalt. I figured, hey, it was a mile marker episode. And then we hit 25, and it's like, 25, when you make 20 was a good, solid number. When you hit 25, it's like, you know what? You're halfway to 50. You're at a quarter of 100. In my eyes, hey, you know what? This is a mile marker. You're growing, you're gaining. And Setzer Pendants came up. He goes, dude, you're onto something. Forget the episodes. He goes, dude, every episode is a mile marker. Yeah. And so from 25, it's like we've kind of changed them. You know what? We're passing mileposts, passing mile markers. And now you'll see all the new social media posts. They have that mile marker post in the corner of every one. And so that's now, awesome. We moved on to mile marker. So mile marker 28 will come out tomorrow with Mod Glide 07.
Nice. And what's your release schedule for folks that don't know? So you're releasing twice a week?
Episodes every Wednesday at noon Pacific and every other Saturday at noon Pacific.
Okay, so you're doing every other Saturday. Gotcha.
Yeah, because in the beginning, it's like I got on pretty hot and heavy. I mean, not that I'm not having any less fun now, but it's like, hey, I sent out so many messages to people and the feedback and everybody, hey, I'd love to do one. And before I knew it, I was like 8-9 weeks ahead. I'm like, dude, I'm talking to a guy in November and, we're doing this and it's not going to air towards December. I'm like, I got to figure something out.
Yeah.
And I was talking with my daughter, who was a great support. I mean, she listens to all of them, gives me feedback and comments every time. She's like, hey, Dad, why don't you do like every other Saturday? She goes, they're kind of spaced out. And she goes, that would help. I'm like, dude, that is a genius idea. So we've gone from every Wednesday and we threw in every other Saturday, which really helped with the backlog when they had so many already pre-recorded. That's been great. And that's kind of what I've stuck to. And I think what I'm going to stick to for quite a while. I don't want to put out too much content where it kind of bores people. I think doing it, a Wednesday, you'll get a Saturday and then you got one Wednesday and then you're not going to get an episode for, another week. So I think the Wednesday, every other Saturday is kind of a good happy medium of not too much, but you still keep people intrigued. I look at the analytics, I'm still getting great, views, and it's turned out really cool.
That's awesome. So what do you say to the people that want to start something like that? I mean, because you kind of just tackled it head on. I mean, you didn't go in lightly at all, which I think is awesome.
Dude, I had no idea what I was doing. I just said, you know what? I want to try this. I'm a big fan of the Law Abiding Biker podcast. I mean, I've listened to Joe Rogan for a long time. There's a few other motorcycle ones, some, David Goggins, Jocko. I've listened, I listen to a wide spectrum of stuff. I'm not listening to podcasts. I'm a big music person. And so when I just decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to try this. And, I guess with anything, it's like, don't do it half-assed, just do it. And it's been awesome. I don't, the respect from everybody, the feedback, and it's just the friendships. It's awesome. If you want to do it, hey, dive into it. There's so many great avenues. You don't need the best of equipment. I mean, all you really need is a smartphone.
Yeah.
I do mine through Anchor. It's been a great format. I prefer that. I like using the old iPhone headphones, the one you plug in, you get the little microphone. So if you got a smartphone in your headphones, dude, that's all you need.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because Anchor's whole big thing is that, just get on there and do it, and try it out. And when you mentioned it to me, when we spoke before, I was kind of like, I don't know. It sounds okay. Like the YouTube thing to me makes sense, but I will say this, the Anchor experience is 10 times easier than YouTube ever would be. Cause first off, it's only audio, but it's just so much easier. They really
the
do
other fact
a job.
is they do everything for you. You record the episode, you can edit it. The editing is a lot easier if you do that on a laptop or a desktop computer. You can cut out some of the dead space. I believe it's like they will allow you 50 edits, because I found that out a few times when I did too many, and all of a sudden I lost half the podcast. I'm like, crap. So you kind of got to, be cautious of that. But it's like you record it, you edit it, do your description. But when it comes to sending it out, they do all that for you. I mean, guys, you can find the VTwin Life, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, Radio Public, Breaker, Pocket Casts. And you don't have to do that part. They do it for you. They get you out there and just watch it grow. Figure out, what do you want to talk about? What's your niche that intrigues you, and go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going back to the biggest thing. I think probably the biggest thing that helped me is I've been a baseball announcer for 5 years. I was never one to speaking in public. I mean, when it came back in school, dude, you wouldn't even find me in front of 5-10 people. There's absolutely no way. And even the first season and a half of baseball, I was very nervous. My first game was a big tournament here in Port Angeles. I mean, there was international teams here. The team that I was announcing for, I mean, they've been in the community for over 30 years. They put a good number of kids into college playing baseball and really progress. It's a very well-known organization. It's actually called Wilder Baseball Club. And when I got asked if I would want to try it, I was like, hey, sure. Well, there's so much to it. Your opening ceremonies, they have a list of sponsors that's huge, probably close to 30. You got your national anthems. You're introducing all the players, your teams. There's the concession stand that's being put on by other volunteers. You got food. Besides that, I mean, I'm doing all the music. I'm doing walk-up music for our own team, music between innings, music between games. That part wasn't bad, but when it came to wanting to do all the speaking, dude, it's no joke. I was about ready to puke in a garbage can in the booth. I was so nervous.
I believe it.
It probably took me a season to a season and a half to get comfortable, and I started having a lot of fun. And when we got a coach here in Port Angeles who actually played Division I baseball, he came up and he goes, Denver, he goes, what you're doing is amazing. He goes, this is no joke aside. He goes, you do a better announcing than a lot of D1 colleges. He goes, I've been fortunate enough to go around. He goes, what you're doing for these kids and for these parents, he goes, some of them might not go on to play. He goes, but you're making memories by everything you do. Because I would let the kids pick your walk-up songs for batting. Pitchers, they had their own walk-up songs. I had some comical music. If, opposing teams strike out, I would cue up some music I would have set for certain parts of songs. And I really started having a lot of fun with it. I miss it because we didn't get baseball last year. Depending on how my new job goes, I'm not sure if I'll be able to be in the booth much this year, which really sucks because I really enjoy it. But we'll see what happens. But I think for me, being in the booth and spending, the 4 to 5 years I did helped me tremendously in this podcast. It made me a whole lot more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's, I think it's like anything, there's just no way to do it, but to do it. There's no, everyone laughs, but it's sort of, I think it's Think Media's whole thing is you just got to punch it in the face and just run with it. Just it's going to suck. There. It's going to be horrible, or it may not be, but you don't know until you try. That's right. And if you don't try, you're never going to know. And I think too, I'm also one of those guys. I'm afraid of failure. Am I doing what I'm doing? Is it going to be worth it? Are people even going to watch it? And
yeah, you get those, thoughts in your head, but you don't know until you try.
Yeah.
So if you want to dive into this world of whether you want to do something on YouTube, whether you want to do a podcast, hey, give it a shot because you don't know what's going to happen until you actually try it.
I think that there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, it gets back to your positive mental attitude, right? It gets back to just jumping in over your head and figuring it out, because it's a shame that's not something you can teach, right? You kind of, I mean, I don't know how it was for you. I started riding at a much later point in my life, but that's how it was for me. It was like, well, this is either going to be the dumbest thing I've ever done or the greatest thing I've ever done. And it just went from there.
But then, the other thing is, if you get bucked off, fall off, don't be scared to get back on.
Yep.
A lot of people get in little wrecks and they're like, they lose it. They get scared of it. I mean, here's for one. And you see, I've had my whole head open. I've been in a bad accident, and I stopped racing motocross after that, and I found hill climbing, but it didn't scare me to keep riding. I still ride. I enjoy it. It's a part of me. It always will be. And it's people get in a car wreck. Are you going to quit driving a car? Well, no, most people still driving. Whether you want to take that into your social media life, YouTube, or like we're talking podcasting, don't be afraid to try it. If people don't like one episode, doesn't mean you have to stop. If you're enjoying it, if you feel great about it and it's doing something for you, hey, keep going, man. Things will happen.
Well, and it's like you said too, I think that, and I'm guilty of it, we all get caught up in analytics, right? But I think sometimes it's more important to remind yourself who you're reaching rather than the number of people you're reaching, if that makes sense. It's sometimes you just have to do it for you, and sometimes that's okay. The rest will come. I think if you're being genuine, there's a lot to be said for that.
Or sometimes you'll get, one little, whether it's a messenger, like I had a guy posted on a story. The guy was tuning in and listening to my podcast on the slopes of Austria.
How cool is that?
That was the coolest thing. I'm like, dude, you got to be kidding me. I mean, it's one thing to see, a guy down in Florida, Virginia. You get a message from a guy, post a story that he's tuning in on the slopes of Austria. I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. And I was like a kid in a candy store with that one. I was so giggity and happy. I mean, of course I saved it, and it's freaking amazing how social media can do that, or these podcasts, because you're putting on the internet. People can tune in from anywhere.
Yeah,
and it's like you're talking analytics. I pulled up mine. I've been streamed now in 21 countries, which I find absolutely amazing and crazy.
Yeah, we do a mental health check-in call on Thursday on Zoom, and we had somebody come on. So it's 8:00 my time, so I'm Eastern Standard. And this guy's in his car, and you can tell it's like noon. And I'm like, all right, where is this guy? Guy's in Australia. He's like, oh, I just figured I'd join, say hi. And I'm like, what? The world just became this small. It's nuts. Crazy. It's absolutely nuts, man. It's just fantastic.
Hey, you got to check out the sign. I'm thirsty. Hold on.
Okay.
See, that's the thing. I can do it in my garage, and I got the beer fridge. It keeps beer ice cold.
Cool.
Because the temperature control is broken. It's set to very cold. Cheers,
I love it. So I guess as we wrap, what's that?
I mean, it's like we got to be careful sometimes. You put soda pop in there, it'll freeze them, but the temperature, the whole control inside the fridge is broke. We like to say that it's cold as hell.
Oh, that's awesome. That's the way to drink beer. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we got the good old 10 Barrel Brewing out of Bend, Oregon. The Joe IPA, nice. Good citrus note. I'm a big citrus IPA fan.
Okay. We've got Baggers and Brews in Jersey. They're big on beer.
And my other favorite thing, Bottle Breacher.
Oh, nice.
I got a few of these. That's the Chris Kyle edition.
Oh, very cool.
Has his the Punisher.
Oh, that's neat.
They sent it to me. It's got my name on it.
Oh, that's really cool.
I used to have another podcast where I reviewed beers, and so I've had beer companies send me all kinds of stuff. So I got Bottle Breachers from Bottle Breacher, custom Grizzly Cooler from Pyramid Brewing,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, 10 Barrels sent me all kinds of beer a couple years ago to review when they were coming out with new beers, and that whole little venture kind of started, my whole podcast idea. That one, that's a whole nother story I won't even get into, but I decided to do this because motorcycles are more of a passion, and it's been awesome.
Sure. Oh, you got to get my Jersey guys in there then, because that's what they do. They do beer reviews and bikes. It's the best.
I did a lot of beer reviews. I hooked up with a beer company, so we'd review products and review beer, because I do have the big main here.
That's awesome. So as we wrap it up, sir, what do you need to plug? What do we need to talk about? So we talked about where people can find you. So you've got the episodes coming on Wednesdays and every other Saturday, right?
Yep. You can find the VTwin Life on Instagram at the VTwin Life _podcast. On Facebook, it's just the VTwin Life. You can follow along with updates there, other posts and whatnot. You can follow along. Head on over to Crash Inc. at Crash_Inc. on Instagram, crashinclothing.com. They got great products. I think one of the awesome things, I don't know many companies where you can buy a bunch of stuff and you're not charged shipping.
Yeah, they do great stuff. I couldn't
And
believe,
for all those, yeah, go ahead, buddy.
No, go ahead.
And for anybody that tunes into the podcast, there's actually a promo code, but you only find that on the VTwin Life. We don't share that anywhere else. It's a little way to say thank you for everybody that tunes in, and you can save yourself some money if you tune into the VTwin Life. If you want to check out some Crash gear, you can get the great PMA shirt. He just launched a whole nother, clothing line style, a bunch of new t-shirts and sweatshirts. Plus you got the rain gear, gloves, beanies, hats, all kinds of good stuff.
Cool, man. Denver, I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk, man. And I really appreciate the friendship we've built. So you're definitely a positive role model for the community. Hey,
and thank you for letting me be on. This has been a lot of fun. It's a little different. Granted, mine's just audio right now, but being on this side of the camera, the audio it's kind of cool, man. I really enjoyed it. And hey, I'm grateful for you wanting me to come on and talk with you too, man. I greatly appreciate it. And like I said, man, the friendship we built is awesome.
Absolutely.
I think we probably talk weekly.
Yeah.
All the text messages, the phone calls. It's awesome.
It's awesome. I really appreciate your time, sir.
Hey, me too, man.
Thanks, sir.
You have fun. Later.